These wrecks belong to the generation of combat aircraft that bridged canvas wing warfare and the Metal Age before World War II. One site, two eras of design: the fragile wire-braced fighter and the heavier naval machine that replaced it. Even ruined, the engine tells us this was built for acceleration, climb, and short, violent encounters. Pre-war combat aircraft were small, but from inside their wrecks, the engineering still feels like entering a mechanical ribcage. In these early fighters, every inch around the pilot served flight, firepower, or survival. The design still reads clearly: pilot, engine, guns, wings, all compressed into a frame as delicate as it was lethal. This cockpit break is more than damage now. It becomes the landmark that keeps the route honest. Nothing. The transcription for this video is: here the wreck shows the transition from airframe to weapon system. The weapon line is still legible, even after decades of salt, pressure, and biological overgrowth. This is where combat design shows itself most clearly. Pilot-centered, weapons above, engine ahead, escape almost nowhere. That first loss of clarity is a warning, not a crisis. In aircraft wrecks, the seabed itself can erase the route. The next wreck already belongs to a newer doctrine: faster, heavier, more naval, and less forgiving. Compared with the earlier fighter, this machine is denser, tougher, and built for hard service over water. Metal skin and heavier spars made these later fighters stronger, but inside the wreck they create sharper traps. This is the next stage of danger in aircraft interiors. Not darkness alone, but metal shaped into a trap by collapse. Two wrecks in, and the pattern is clear. Each generation solved one problem of combat flight while creating a new hazard for the diver who reads its remains. The wreck gives a choice here: respect the collapse, or let it trap the diver inside a cockpit built for one body only. A field like this preserves not a single crash, but a timeline of changing air combat technology before the World War fully arrived. This third airframe shows the decisive shift toward the modern monoplane fighter: cleaner lines, retractable gear, and tighter performance design. Now the pilot sits deeper inside the machine, protected more by structure, but also boxed tighter into it. Markers matter more as the aircraft become more enclosed. Each advance in design also complicates the diver's exit. Past this point, the wreck stops being a cockpit and becomes a tube of warped control structure. Every intact-looking opening lies. The safe exit is rarely the one that seems shortest. By this stage, the fighter is no longer fragile scaffolding with guns attached. It is becoming an integrated weapon system. Here the wreck field shifts from scattered fragments back into a recognizable machine, but one already broken open by impact and decay.
This kind of opening helps orientation, but it also channels the water and the particles that can erase it.
By now, the route depends less on memory of shape and more on repeated markers, because the field itself is beginning to blur. This is the threshold before disorientation. The landmarks still exist, but the water begins to interrupt them.
Once the familiar outline returns, the field stops feeling endless and becomes navigable again.
When visibility degrades, recognition comes in layers. First a wing line, then the machine, then the route. The route is still intact, but the water's changing, and the next decisions will have to be faster and more disciplined. When visibility worsens, the safest landmark is often the one with height, not detail.
Even a small interior hazard becomes serious when the wreck gives the diver almost no room to yield.
Now the field stops behaving like open ground and starts behaving like weather. This is no longer visual navigation. It is disciplined movement through a current-driven veil. The field has not cleared. It has only given back enough shape for a careful retreat. This final pass is no longer exploration for discovery alone. It is exploration under the discipline of withdrawal. The engineering remains intact enough to study, but the sounds now suggest the wreck is beginning to answer the water. That is the threshold where documentation ends and retreat becomes the responsible choice. A wreck does not need to collapse completely to become unsafe. Sometimes the warning is only a sound and a few grains of falling rust. Root memory is strongest when it ties a marker to a shape, not a marker alone. A marker changes meaning on the way out. It stops promising discovery and starts promising safe return. The retreat ends where the story began, with the earliest machine still reading as the lightest and most exposed. The route is complete, and the evidence is enough, and staying longer would add risk, not understanding. Across just a few wrecks, the pre-war fighter evolves from braced fabric craft to enclosed, metal, integrated combat machine.
We proved the sequence, mapped the route, and confirmed the hazards. What remains is better preserved than disturbed.
These machines still teach, but only if we leave them where history and the sea have already claimed them. Seen whole, the field stops being a series of wrecks and becomes a record of how fighter design changed before the war consumed the world. What we can still identify has survived because the site was approached carefully, read patiently, and left with restraint. We leave these fighters to the sea, not because their story is finished, but because preserving the silence around them is now part of telling it honestly.